The shotgun cracked through the humid twilight like a verdict from God himself, splintering the silence over the Mississippi mudflats where Alexis had hidden her secrets for years. "You think you're different from them river rats your mama warned you about?" Her father's voice echoed from the porch, slurred with bourbon and the weight of generations who built their lives on knowing exactly who to hate. In that instant, as buckshot peppered the water inches from her bare feet, Alexis realized the real danger wasn't the gators lurking below, but the venom her own blood had poured into her veins since the day she could walk. She bolted from the dock that night, heart pounding like a drum in some forgotten revival hymn, the taste of brackish river spray on her lips mingling with the salt of tears she refused to let fall. Monroe wasn't a town that forgave runners. It was a place where the Washita River curled lazy and unforgiving around secrets, holding them under until they drowned or surfaced bloated with regret. Alexis Harper had grown up on the South Side, in a shotgun house sagging under the weight of her father's mill job, and her mother's endless prayers for a daughter who would marry right. Stay white. Stay straight. Stay in her lane. The Harpers were the kind of folk who flew Confederate flags not out of pride, but habit, a faded banner snapping against the pecan trees like a warning to outsiders. And Juliette Beaumont? She was the outsider Alexis was taught to envy and despise in equal measure. The Beaumonts owned half the cotton field stretching toward the Arkansas line, their antebellum mansion perched on a hill like a crown on the king's forehead, white columns gleaming under gas lamps that cost more than Alexis' entire roof. Juliette was the golden girl, heir to the legacy of senators and sheriffs, her family name etched into the library plaques and the war memorials downtown. From the cradle, Alexis had heard the stories, how the Beaumonts had clawed their way from French Creole roots to Southern aristocracy, only to hoard it all behind iron gates and whispered slurs about the poor whites scraping by on welfare checks and moonshine stills. "They think they're better than God," her father would mutter over dinner, fork stabbing at his beans like he was spearing a Beaumont heart. "But blood tells. Girl. Yours runs true." Alexis learned early to keep her head down, her questions buried deeper than the catfish in the riverbed. School was a battlefield of plaid uniforms and polished loafers, where Southside kids like her shuffled into classrooms smelling of fried bologna and hand-me-down shame, while Juliette glided in like summer air, her laughter a melody that turned heads and hardened hearts. They weren't friends, they weren't even acquaintances. Alexis caught glimpses of her in the halls, the way Juliette's dark curls caught the fluorescent buzz, the effortless grace in her debate club arguments that dismantled opponents without raising her voice. But glimpses were all they got, filtered through the fog of cafeteria trays and the invisible lines drawn by zip codes and last names. By 18, those lines had carved canyons. Alexis dropped out after her mother fell ill, trading cap and gown for double shifts at the Piggly Wiggly, stocking shelves until her hands blistered and her dreams blurred into the hum of fluorescent lights. Juliette went north to Tulane on a legacy scholarship, majoring in political science with eyes on her father's Senate seat. The town buzzed with it. Beaumont girl, future First Lady material, the kind who married bankers and birthed heirs to keep the dynasty intact. Alexis heard the gossip at the checkout line, women clucking their tongues over how Juliette had gotten ideas in that New Orleans heat, rumors of parties and boys who didn't measure up. But Alexis tuned it out, same as she tuned out the ache in her chest when she passed the Beaumont estate on her bike, the wrought iron gates mocking her with their locked promise. It was 5 years later, in the sweltering summer of 2025, that the river decided to stir things up. The floods came unannounced, the Washita swelling like a grudge held too long, swallowing lowlands and licking at foundations. Monroe mobilized in that frantic way small towns do, sandbags and soup kitchens, preachers calling it judgment from on high. Alexis volunteered at the relief center in the old armory, her calloused hands sorting canned goods and blankets for the displaced. The air reeked of damp earth and diesel generators, voices overlapping in a chorus of worry and resolve. That's when Juliet walked in. Not in pearls and heels, but mud-splattered boots and a Beaumont Foundation t-shirt, hair tied back with a rubber band that had seen better days. She carried a crate of water bottles like it was nothing, setting it down with a thud that drew eyes from every corner. "Where do you need these?" she asked the coordinator, her voice steady, laced with that faint Louisiana drawl that made vowels stretch like taffy. No one answered right away. It was like seeing a peacock in a henhouse, all that polished legacy wading through the muck with the rest of them. Alexis watched from behind a stack of tarps, her pulse quickening in a way she couldn't name. Juliet looked smaller up close, the flood stripping away the armor of expectation, revealing the fine lines of exhaustion around her eyes. She rolled up her sleeves, diving into the fray, handing out sandwiches to wide-eyed kids, arguing with truckers over supply routes, her hands gesturing with the precision of someone who'd debated amendments in front of mirrors. By midday, the armory hummed with her energy, a force that pulled volunteers into orbit, making the chaos feel almost choreographed. Their paths crossed at the supply table, Alexis reaching for a box of diapers just as Juliet's fingers brushed hers. Skin on skin. Brief as a spark, but enough to send a jolt up Alexis' arm, warm and electric. She yanked back, cheeks flushing under the pretense of embarrassment. "Sorry," she muttered, eyes fixed on the cardboard. Juliet smiled, that easy curve of lips that had probably disarmed 1,000 suitors. "No harm." "You with the Southside crew?" "I'm Juliet." "Alexis," she replied, the name sticking in her throat like gravel. Close. Juliet smelled of rain and something floral, like magnolias bruised by storm. "Yeah." Helping out. They fell into rhythm after that, side by side sorting donations, the conversation starting halting, then flowing like the river outside. Juliet talked about the estate flooding its cellars, vintage wines bobbing in the dark like drowned ghosts, and Alexis laughed, a real laugh, rusty from disuse, sharing stories of her father's leaky boat and the time she'd fished out a neighbor's cat from the current. It was easy. Too easy. The barriers crumbling under the weight of shared sweat and sidelong glances. Juliet asked about the mill closing, her brow furrowing at tales of layoffs and empty pantries. Alexis probed gently about Tulane, the city lights that must have felt like another world. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the concrete floor, Juliet wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. "You ever think about leaving this place?" she asked, voice low, like the words were contraband. Alexis hesitated, the question hooking into the soft underbelly of her resolve. "Every damn day. But roots go deep here." "You." Juliet looked out the open bay door, toward the churning water. "Deeper than ID like." "Daddy's got plans, big ones. Senate run next year. Can't just float away." The unspoken hung between them, heavy as humidity. Alexis felt it then, that pull, like gravity shifting under her feet. She wanted to reach out, Trace the line of Juliet's jaw. Ask what plans she had for herself. Instead, she nodded, stacking the last box. Well, if the river takes the mansion, you know where to find dry ground, Juliet chuckled. Soft and genuine. I'll remember that. Alexis Harper. She knew her name. Of course she did. In Monroe, names were currency, traded in whispers and ledgers. But hearing it from Juliet's lips felt like a key turning in a lock Alexis hadn't known was there. The flood receded by week's end, leaving silt-scrawled streets and a town knitting itself back together with duct tape and determination. Alexis returned to her shifts at the store, the routine a balm against the memory of those hours in the armory. But Juliet lingered in her mind, a ghost in the aisles, appearing in the flicker of checkout scanners or the steam of her morning coffee. She told herself it was nothing, just flood fever, the kind that makes strangers into confidants. Her father noticed her distraction over supper one night, his fork pausing midair. Something eatin' you. Girl, you look like you seen the devil. Just tired. Daddy, she lied, pushing peas around her plate. The devil? Maybe, but one with dark curls and eyes like polished oak. 2 weeks later, the invitation came scrawled on Beaumont letterhead, slipped under her door like a summons, a fundraiser for flood victims at the estate. Black tie optional. All hands welcome. Alexis stared at it in the dim bulb of her kitchen, heart hammering. It was a trap. Surely charity for the masses. A chance for the elite to pat themselves on the back while sipping champagne from crystal that cost more than her rent. But beneath the gilt edges, Juliet's handwriting looped in the RSVP. Please come. We need more hands like yours. She went, borrowing a dress from her coworker that hung loose on her frame, the fabric whispering against her skin like doubt. The mansion loomed under strings of lanterns, manicured lawn stretching to the river, alive with the murmur of Monroe's finest, judges in seersucker, wives in pearls, the air thick with cigar smoke and veiled barbs. Alexis felt exposed, a South Side stain on the pristine tableau. But she held her chin high, weaving through the crowd with a tray of hors d'oeuvres she'd commandeered from a harried caterer. Juliet found her by the gazebo, away from the string quartet and the flash of cameras. She wore a simple sheath of emerald silk that caught the light like river reeds, her hair loose, framing a face flushed with the evening's wine. You came, she said, relief softening her edges. Couldn't let you drown in canapes alone, Alexis quipped, the words bolder than she felt. They talked for hours, or what felt like it, the fundraiser fading into background noise as Juliet led her through the gardens, pointing out heirloom roses her grandmother had smuggled from France, the hidden swing where she'd stolen her first cigarette. Juliet confessed the pressure. Her father's expectations like a noose tightening with every poll number. Marry the right man. Bear the right children. Uphold the name. It's like they're auctioning off my life at these things, she said, voice cracking on a laugh. And I'm the prize mare. Alexis listened, the words sinking into her like rain into parched earth. She shared fragments of her own cage, the mill town's ghost, her mother's Bible-thumping sermons on sin and salvation, the way poverty pinned you down harder than any chain. We hate what we can't have, Alexis murmured, tracing a petal with her finger. They taught us that early. Juliet's gaze held hers. Intense. Searching. Who taught you to hate me? The question landed like a stone in still water. Alexis swallowed, the truth bubbling up unbidden. My daddy said your kind thinks you're royalty, lording over us like we ain't worth the dirt under your boots. And you, Juliet pressed, stepping closer, the space between them shrinking to a breath. Alexis met her eyes, saw the vulnerability there, the girl beneath the gown. I don't hate you, Juliet. Never could. The night deepened, stars pricking the sky like accusations. When Juliet brushed a stray hair from Alexis' face, her touch lingered, thumb grazing cheekbone in a caress that ignited something primal, forbidden. Alexis froze, the world narrowing to that point of contact, her body awakening to a hunger shed buried under layers of denial and doctrine. I should go, she whispered, but her feet rooted. Juliet nodded, but her hand dropped slowly, reluctance in every inch. Thank you for coming. Really, as Alexis slipped away into the shadows, the estate's lights fading behind her, she felt the first crack in the foundation of everything she'd been taught. It was small, a hairline fracture, but rivers start with a single drop, and Monroe's waters ran deep. The days blurred after the fundraiser, Monroe's late summer haze pressing down like a held breath, thick with cicada song and the scent of overripe peaches rotting on the vines. Alexis threw herself into work, the Piggly Wiggly aisles becoming her confessional, where she whispered doubts to the canned soups and prayed for distraction in the beeps of the register. But Juliet was everywhere now, not just in memory, but in the town's pulse. The local paper ran a photo from the event, Juliet beaming beside her father, Senator Beaumont, arm linked with a blandly handsome banker from Shreveport, the caption touting her as the future face of Southern resilience. Alexis clipped it from the break room bulletin, folding it into her pocket like a talisman or a curse, unsure which. She told herself it was curiosity, nothing more. When she drove past the estate on her off days, the gravel crunching under tires worn thin from too many miles on back roads. The gates stood open more often now, volunteers streaming in for repairs, Southside hands mending fences and clearing debris. An uneasy truce brokered by necessity. Alexis volunteered again, telling herself it was for the community, not the girl with eyes that saw through her like sunlight on stained glass. Their second meeting was in the Beaumont stables, the air heavy with hay dust and horse sweat, Juliet knee-deep in muck, forking straw with a determination that bordered on fury. She looked up as Alexis approached, pitchfork pausing mid-air, a smudge of dirt across her cheek like war paint. You again, she said. But her smile betrayed the pleasure. Warm as hearth fire. Figured you could use another pair of hands, Alexis replied, grabbing a shovel without waiting for invitation. They worked in companionable silence at first, the rhythm of labor easing the awkwardness, bodies moving in sync like dancers who'd rehearsed in dreams. Juliet broke it eventually, leaning on her tool, wiping sweat from her brow. Daddy's on a tear about the floods. Blames the feds, the Greens, anyone but the old levees his granddaddy built cheap. Alexis snorted, digging into the soiled bedding. Sounds like my side of town. Blame the poors for not praying hard enough. Juliet's laugh was sharp, edged with something bitter. We're all just pawns in their game, aren't we? Rich or poor. They carve you up to fit the board. The words hung, inviting deeper waters. As they hauled the waste to the compost heap, Juliet opened up in fits and starts about the banker, Harlan, with his pressed khakis and proposals that felt like contracts, about the suffocating weight of debutante balls and family dinners where every forklift was a performance. "I play the part," she admitted, voice low against the whinny of a mare. But inside, it's like screaming into a pillow. No one hears. Alexis paused, shovel heavy in her grip, the vulnerability in Juliet's confession mirroring her own buried cries. "I hear you," she said simply, and meant it. In that moment, under the stable rafters where dust motes danced like fireflies, the divide between them thinned to a veil. They stole moments after that, fragile as spun sugar. A coffee at the diner on the edge of town, where the waitress eyed them with small-town scrutiny but said nothing over the sizzle of bacon. Walks along the river levee at dusk, feet kicking up dust devils that swirled like unspoken questions. Juliet brought books from her father's library, faded hardcovers of Faulkner and Welty, pages dog-eared with her marginalia, and Alexis shared mixtapes burned on her ancient laptop. Songs of outlaws and heartache that filled the cab of her truck with gravel-voiced rebellion. It was during one of those drives, windows down to the whip of Spanish moss, that the first real confession slipped out. Juliet fiddled with the radio dial, landing on a static-laced country ballad about lost loves and backroad escapes. "You ever kiss someone and feel like the world's tilting?" she asked, casual as commenting on the weather, but her knuckles whitened on the door handle. Alexis gripped the wheel tighter, the road unspooling ahead like fate. "Once or twice. But not like. Not the way it should." Juliet turned, her profile sharp against the sunset, eyes reflecting the dying light. "What if it was with someone you weren't supposed to? Someone who'd get you disowned? Or worse?" The truck slowed without Alexis realizing, pulling to the shoulder where gravel gave way to wild blackberries. Silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. "Then you'd know it was real," Alexis finally said, her voice a thread. "Real enough to fight for." Juliet's hand found hers then. Tentative. Fingers interlacing like puzzle pieces long separated. The touch was fire and anchor, grounding Alexis in a storm of sensation, soft skin calloused from garden work, pulse racing in tandem with her own. They sat like that until the stars wheeled out, the river murmuring approval or warning. It was hard to tell. Back home, the facade cracked further. Alexis lay awake in her narrow bed, the ceiling fan stirring ghosts of ceiling beams, replaying the warmth of that hand in hers. Her mother's photo watched from the nightstand, faded smile a silent reproach. "Be good, Lexi. Be what they expect." But expectation was a cage, and Juliet was the key turning slow. The town sensed the shift. Or perhaps it was just Monroe's way, eyes that lingered too long at the post office, whispers curling like smoke from porch swings. Alexis' father confronted her over breakfast one morning, newspaper folded sharp as a blade. "Heard you been runnin' with that Beaumont girl. What are you thinkin'? Girl, they'll use you up and spit you out. Same as always." "She's not like that," Alexis shot back, coffee mug slamming down harder than intended. He leaned in, eyes bloodshot with old grievances. "They all like that. Born with silver spoons and souls black as the Delta. You stay clear, or you'll drag this family down with your fool notions." The words lodged like barbs, but Alexis held her ground, the fire in her chest burning brighter. She met Juliet that afternoon in the woods behind the estate, a hidden clearing where live oaks draped like curtains, the ground carpeted in pine needles soft as forgiveness. They picnicked on stolen moments, cheese and crackers from the Piggly, a thermos of sweet tea, and talked of futures that didn't include Monroe. Juliet dreamed of New Orleans jazz clubs and advocacy work for the forgotten. Alexis spoke of Portland rain and community gardens where roots could grow free. As the light slanted gold through the branches, Juliet leaned in, her breath warm against Alexis' cheek. "I can't stop thinking about you," she whispered, the admission a dam-breaking. Alexis' heart stuttered, desire coiling tight. "Me neither. It's like you've rewritten the rules in my head." Their lips met then. Soft at first, exploratory, a brush of possibility that deepened into hunger. Hands cupping faces, bodies drawing close in the dappled shade. The kiss tasted of tea and salt and revolution, the world falling away to the thud of hearts and the rustle of leaves. It was everything the sermons had warned against, and nothing like the sin they described. No fire and brimstone, just a quiet unraveling, threads of doctrine pulling free. They broke apart breathless, foreheads pressed, laughter bubbling up through the awe. "What now?" Juliet murmured, fingers tracing Alexis' jaw. "Now we figure it out," Alexis replied, resolve hardening like levee clay. Together. But together was a fragile word in Monroe, and the shadows lengthened fast. The kiss lingered like a brand, invisible but indelible, marking Alexis in ways she couldn't scrub clean. Mornings brought a new rhythm to her steps, a lightness that made the Piggly Wiggly fluorescence seem less oppressive, the customer's grumbles mere white noise against the echo of Juliet's sigh. They met in stolen slivers now, dawn runs along the levee, where fog cloaked their clasped hands, midnight texts that lit up Alexis' phone like beacons, words tumbling across screens in a language of longing and levity. Juliet sent photos of her sketching protest posters in her attic studio. Alexis replied with blurry shots of river sunrises, captions laced with inside jokes about escaping to Vermont maple groves or Oregon coastlines where the Pacific could wash away the South's stubborn stains. Yet the idyll was laced with undercurrents, Monroe's currents pulling insistent. Juliet's father ramped up the courtship with Harlan. Dinners at the country club where silverware clinked like judgments. His family a mirror of Beaumont ambitions, old money woven with new politics, a match to consolidate power. She confided in Alexis over a payphone at the edge of town, voice strained through the receiver. "He's talking rings now, like I'm a transaction on the ledger. And Daddy, he looks at me like I've already signed away my soul." Alexis paced the gravel lot, receiver slick in her palm. "Tell him no. Tell them all." Juliet's laugh was hollow, wind rattled. "You make it sound simple. But here, no is a four-letter word they don't recognize." The pressure seeped into their haven too. Subtle at first, a hesitation in Juliet's touch, a glance over her shoulder during their clearing rendezvous. Alexis felt it like a chill seeping through floorboards. The woods no longer sanctuary but stage for a play with unseen audience. One evening, as they lay tangled on a quilt amid fireflies, Juliet traced patterns on Alexis' collarbone, her voice a murmur against skin. "What if we just left, packed a bag, hit the interstate north? No goodbyes, no explanations." Alexis' heart soared at the vision. Open road unspooling under tires, billboards blurring into freedom, a diner in Memphis where they could hold hands over pie without the weight of stairs. I'd follow you anywhere, she said, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of wild possibility. But dreams deferred have teeth. The unraveling started small, a Southside gossip reaching Alexis' ear at the store. A co-worker's sly grin over the tale of that rich girl slum in it with the help. Alexis brushed it off. But the seed took root, sprouting doubt in quiet hours. Her father grew quieter, his silences heavier, until one night he cornered her in the kitchen, Bible open on the table like evidence. "Folks are talkin', Lexi, about you and that Beaumont witch. You bringin' shame on us, girl. The Lord's watchin'. The Lord's got better things," she snapped. But the words rang false even to her, the old fears coiling back. Cross town, Juliet faced her own siege. Senator Beaumont summoned her to his study, oak-paneled fortress smelling of leather and aged scotch, the walls lined with portraits of stern ancestors who stared down like jurors. "Harlan's family is key to the campaign," he said, voice smooth as oil over gravel. "You owe this family your future, Juliet. Don't squander it on whims." "It's not a whim, Daddy," she protested. But he waved it away, eyes narrowing at the defiance in her stance. "Whims get girls like you ruined. Remember Cousin Elise? Ran off with that artist from the quarter. Came crawling back broken. You're a Beaumont. Act like it." The name Elise hung like a specter. Cousin Elise. The family black sheep had fled to bohemian excesses, only to return hollow-eyed years later, whispers of that lifestyle trailing her like smoke. Juliet nodded through the lecture. But inside, resolve fractured. The kiss with Alexis now a secret burning hole in her chest. The storm broke at the annual Harvest Festival. Monroe's ritual of denial, booths of funnel cakes and fiddles masking the class chasms under hay bales and harvest moons. Alexis manned a booth for the Mill Workers Union, hawking raffle tickets with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The crowd a mix of wary neighbors and Beaumont benefactors slumming for photo ops. Juliet appeared mid-afternoon, arm looped with Harlan's, her sundress a splash of color against his starched shirt, laughter tinkling like forced bells. Their eyes met across the midway, a collision that stopped Alexis' breath, the pain in Juliet's gaze, masked by small talk with donors, a silent plea that twisted like a knife. Alexis turned away, busying herself with tickets. But the damage was done. Whispers rippled outward, Southside eyes narrowing, Northside brows arching in speculation. That night, they met in the clearing, the air electric with unsaid storms. Juliet arrived first, pacing the pine needles, tears carving tracks through her mascara. "I couldn't get away," she choked out as Alexis emerged from the shadows. "He wouldn't let go. Daddy had the whole damn town watching." Alexis pulled her close, arms a bulwark against the fray. "It's okay. We're okay." But it wasn't. Juliet pulled back, eyes wild. "No, it's not. Harlan proposed tonight, in front of everyone. Said yes to keep the peace, just for a minute, but got Alexis, what am I doing?" The words landed like buckshot, each one embedding deeper. "You said yes." Alexis' voice cracked, the world tilting treacherous. "Only to buy time. I don't love him, I love." Juliet reached out, but Alexis stepped back, the betrayal blooming cold. "Time for what?" For them to carve you up piece by piece. Anger surged, hot and righteous, mingling with the grief clawing her throat. You think this is a game? My world's crumbling because of us. And you're playing debutante. Juliet's face crumpled, hands fisting her dress. You don't understand. They owe me the name, the money, everything. If I lose it all, what then? Then you'd have me, Alexis hurled. The truth a weapon. But maybe that's not enough for a Beaumont. The silence that followed was a chasm. Fireflies winking oblivious. Juliet sobbed. A sound raw as exposed roots. But Alexis turned, fleeing into the dark. The kiss that had changed everything now a scar reopening. She drove aimless that night. Tires eating blacktop until the river loomed. Its surface a black mirror reflecting fractured stars. Parking on the familiar dock, she hurled stones into the current. Each splash a release of fury and fear. The girl she'd been raised to hate. Now hating the girl she'd become. Dawn found her there, shivering in the cab. Resolve hardening. End it clean. Before the town tore them both apart. But Monroe had other plans. Its tendrils wrapping tighter. The fracture widened into a fault line. Days bleeding into a haze of avoidance and ache. Alexis called in sick to the Piggly. Holing up in her room with curtains drawn. The world reduced to the tick of her alarm clock and the muffled arguments filtering from the kitchen. Her father railing at shadows. Her aunt clucking about phases and poor choices. Sleep came fitful. Dreams tangled with river mud and emerald silk. Waking her with the phantom taste of Juliet's lips. Bitter now with betrayal. She broke first. Couldn't help it. Texting a Kurt we need to talk from a burner app she'd downloaded in a fit of paranoia. The reply came swift. The old boathouse. Midnight. Neutral ground. The sagging structure on neutral levee land. Half claimed by kudzu and time. Where kids once carved initials into cypress knees. Alexis arrived early. Boots sinking into the soft bank. The Washita lapping gentle as a lullaby laced with lies. Juliet emerged from the willows like a specter. Heron-bound. Wearing jeans and a hoodie that swallowed her frame. The heiress stripped to vulnerability. They stood apart at first. The space between them humming with unsaid recriminations. The air thick with frog chorus and regret. You said yes, Alexis started. Voice flat as the water. Arms crossed like armor. Juliet flinched. But held ground. It was a stall. I told him the next day, called it off in his office. With Daddy listening on speaker. He was furious. Threatened to cut me off. But I chose. Alexis blinked. The confession a lifeline tossed into churning waters. Chose what? You, Juliet said. Simple. Stepping closer. Us. Whatever this is. It's worth the wreckage. The words unlock something in Alexis. A floodgate of relief and rage crashing together. She closed the gap. Hands fisting in Juliet's hoodie. Pulling her into a kiss fierce and forgiving. Teeth and tongues and tears. A reclamation that left them gasping. Foreheads pressed in the moonlight. Don't do that again, Alexis whispered. Fierce. Don't let them win even for a second. I want, Juliet vowed. Fingers threading through auburn strands. But it's not over. Daddy's rallying the troops, Harlan too. Spinning stories to save face. The engagement's off. But the rumors. They're saying I'm unstable. That I need fixing. Monroe weaponized whispers like buckshot. And the barrage came swift. At the store, when Alexis returned, customers averted eyes or stared outright. Murmurs of that queer business with the rich girl, slithering behind hands. Her boss pulled her aside, awkward in his polyester vest. Folks are complainin'. Lex. Nothing personal. But maybe take some time. Fired. Effectively. With a vague promise of rehire when things cooled. Alexis walked out into the parking lot. Sun blinding. The loss a hollow thump in her chest. She drove straight to the clearing. Juliet waiting with a thermos and apologies that tasted like ash. It's fallout, Juliet said, pouring tea with trembling hands. I can fix it, talk to people. Smooth it over. Fix it, Alexis echoed, bitterness rising. You can't fix prejudice, Juliet. It's baked in. Like humidity, they argued then. Voices rising over the rustle of leaves, Alexis railing at the naivete of privilege. Juliet defending with pleas of incremental change. Her father's world not all villainy. He's still my family, she insisted. Tears glistening. I can't just burn it down. And I can't keep scraping by while you tiptoe, Alexis countered. The chasm reopening. They parted raw. The kiss in the boathouse, a fragile bridge straining under weight. The real tempest brewed at church. Monroe's First Baptist, a coliseum of stained glass and sanctimony, where pews creaked under the weight of collective judgment. Alexis' aunt dragged her there Sunday. Bible study, a gauntlet of sidelong glares and pointed prayers for wayward souls. Pastor Hale, silver-haired sentinel with a voice like thunder, preached on Sodom and family honor, his eyes lingering on Alexis like she was Exhibit A. Juliet sat rows ahead with her parents, spine rigid in pearls and pastel, the picture of piety. When the sermon ended, she slipped Alexis a note in the narthex crush. Meet me after. Please. The cemetery behind the church became their confessional. Headstones mossy witnesses to hurried words. I told him, Juliet confessed. Voice hushed among the oaks. About us. Not everything. But enough, he knows I'm not marrying Harlan. That there's someone. Alexis' heart seized. And he cried, Juliet said, wonder and sorrow mingling. Called it a phase. Begged me to pray it away. But he didn't disown me. Not yet. The vulnerability cracked Alexis' resolve, pulling her into an embrace fierce against the chill of marble. They kissed there, among the dead. A defiant bloom in the shade, a vow whispered against lips. Well, face it together. But facades fracture under scrutiny. Senator Beaumont struck back subtle. A donors' meeting turned ambush where he cornered Juliet. Voice velvet over steel. This dalliance ends now. She's using you. Playing class warrior for scraps. Think of the legacy. Juliet stood firm. But doubt seeded. Watered by Harlan's calls, hurt turned venom. Accusations of leading him on. Of tainting the town with deviant games. She pulled away from Alexis that week. Cancellations piling like storm clouds. Family dinner. Campaign stuff. Rain check. Alexis stewed in the silence. The clearing empty save for wind-whipped branches. Her father found the note then. Crumpled in her jeans pocket. Juliet's looping script, a betrayal in ink. I knew it, he roared. Face purpling. She's poison. That one to turn my girl into something unnatural. The fight spilled into the street. Neighbors peering from curtains as Alexis shouted back. She's more real than this town ever taught us to be. He struck her then. Open palm across cheek. The sting a wake-up sharper than any sermon. She packed a duffel that night, slamming the door on his sobs, driving to a motel on the outskirts where neon buzzed like accusation. Juliet came at dawn, pounding the flimsy door, eyes wild with worry. I heard. Got. Alexis. I'm sorry. They collapsed together on the sagging bed, bodies entwining in a tangle of need and despair, kisses turning urgent, hands mapping familiar territories with renewed desperation, clothes shed like old skins. In the dim light, with traffic humming distant, they made love slow and sacred, whispers weaving promises against the world's roar. After, tangled in sheets thin as resolve, Juliet traced the red mark on Alexis' cheek. We can't stay. Not like this. Portland, Alexis murmured, half dreaming. Juliet nodded. Fierce. Portland. Fresh start. But Monroe's grip tightened, the betrayal brewing in shadows they couldn't see. The motel became a temporary fortress, its peeling wallpaper and lumpy mattress a world apart from Monroe's prying eyes. But sanctuary is fleeting when roots run deep. Alexis and Juliet holed up there for days, plotting escapes over takeout cartons and road maps spread like battle plans, interstates snaking north, rest stops marked for fuel and fortitude. A cousin in Nashville who might front cash for bus tickets if the truck gave out. Laughter punctuated the logistics, tentative at first, then full-throated, as if naming the future could summon it whole. Yet doubt shadowed the idol, creeping in with each unanswered call on Juliet's phone, Senator Beaumont's number flashing insistent, voicemails stacking like indictments. She silenced it eventually, tossing the device into a drawer with a finality that felt like amputation. He's not getting another piece, she declared, curling into Alexis' side, head on shoulder. Not of me. Alexis held her, breathing in the scent of cheap shampoo and resolve, but the mark on her cheek had faded to a bruise, a reminder that blows land from all sides. Her own phone buzzed sporadic, texts from coworkers offering vague sympathy. A plea from her aunt laced with scripture on repentance. She deleted them unread. The severance a clean cut, but cleaner cuts scar deeper. The betrayal struck on the 5th day, swift as a levee breach. Juliet slipped out for groceries, promising smokes and sodas, returning not with bags but a pallor that drained the room of air. Harlan, she said, collapsing onto the bed, voice hollow. He told them everything. Alexis sat up, gut twisting. Told who? Daddy. The whole damn inner circle. Said he found letters, my sketches, notes ID hidden in the attic. Spun it like blackmail. Like him the villain corrupting the town. Tears welled. But she dashed them away. Fury sparking. He's suing for defamation. Claims I led him on to sabotage the campaign. And you? They're calling you a gold digger. Saying you seduced me for the estate. The words landed like grape shot, shredding the fragile peace. Alexis paced the cramped room, rage boiling. How? We were careful. Not careful enough. Juliet buried her face in hands, shoulders shaking. I trusted him once. Before us. He must have kept keys. Or got. I don't know. But it's out. Alexis. The papers have it by morning. Monroe Gazette front page. Society pages turned scandal sheet. The world contracted to the motel's thin walls. The hum of the AC a dirge. Alexis grabbed her keys. Storming out into the parking lot where semis idled like judgments, dialing a number she'd sworn off. Her father answered gruff, voice thick with sleep or sorrow. What now? Girl. It's true, she said. No preamble. About me and Juliet. And I need you to hear it from me. I love her. Not some phase. Not a mistake. Silence stretched. Broken by a ragged exhale. You're breaking my heart. Lexi. Comin' home means ruinin' everything we built. Then let it ruin, she snapped. The line going dead before regret could follow. Back inside. Juliet waited. Eyes red-rimmed but steady. What do? We run, Alexis said. The decision crystallizing. Tonight. Before they circle the wagons, they packed frantic. Duffel stuffed with essentials, clothes, cash scraped from tip jars. The roadmap creased at hopeful latitudes. The truck coughed to life in the lot. Headlights cutting the dark as they merged onto the highway. Monroe shrinking in the rearview like a bad dream dissolving. Juliet clutched Alexis' hand over the gearshift. The river fading to bridges and billboards. Freedom tasting of exhaust and adrenaline. But betrayal has hounds. And they bayed loud. By Baton Rouge. The radio crackled with news. Senator Beaumont's press conference. Voice booming righteous. My daughter's been misled by influences preying on vulnerability. This is a family matter. But the community must stand against such predation. Harlan flanked him. Suit crisp. Eyes gleaming with vindication. Callers flooded lines. Voices thick with outrage. Lock up that Southside trash. Protect our girls. Alexis snapped it off. Knuckles white. He's painting me as the monster. Juliet squeezed her thigh. Fierce. He's scared. Of losing control. They pushed through the night. Alternating drives. Catnapping in rest areas where truckers eyed them curious but kind. Memphis dawned humid. A pit stop for coffee and cornbread at a soul food joint where the waitress winked over refills. Y'all runnin' from something good. I hope. Laughter came easier there. The Mississippi's broader bend a omen of wider waters. But the news tightened virtual, social media erupting. Hashtags like Save Juliet Beaumont trending local. Posts dissecting their affair, with screenshots of blurred photos from the festival. Speculation veering vicious, she's brainwashed that dyke into thinking she's quality. Juliet scrolled once. Then hurled her phone out the window at a gas station. The shatter a cathartic crack. Enough, she said. Climbing back in. Face set. They don't get to define us. Alexis nodded. Pulling her into a kiss salty with road dust. The cab their cocoon. They crossed into Tennessee hills. Leaves turning russet like embers. The landscape shifting from Delta Flat to Appalachian Fold. A metaphor. Perhaps. For the folds in their story yet to unfold. Nashville brought the cousin. A lanky lawyer named Theo with a drawl softened by Vanderbilt. Who met them at a dive bar smelling of stale beer and possibility. Aunt's in a tizzy, he said over whiskeys. Sliding an envelope of cash. But blood's blood. Head west, Portlandies got networks for folks like y'all. And call if the law dogs ya. Gratitude swelled. A buoy in the churn. They crashed at his loft that night. The city's neon pulse a lullaby. Making love slow under skylights where stars competed with streetlights. A affirmation. Body speaking what words couldn't. We are enough. Dawn departure carried new weight. The interstate a ribbon toward unknown. But Monroe's echo pursued. A traffic stop in Kentucky. State trooper eyeing their out-of-state plates in tense postures. Radio crackling with a bolo vague but pointed. Missing heiress. Possible coercion. They talked their way out. Juliet flashing Beaumont charm. Alexis playing quiet accomplice. But the sweat lingered cold. Biasty. Lewis. Exhaustion frayed edges. Arguments sparking over maps and miles. Alexis snapping at detours. Juliet withdrawing into silence. We're free, she murmured one night in a Super 8. Rain sheeting windows. Why does it feel like chains? Because we brought them with us, Alexis replied. Honest. Pulling her close. But well-forged new ones. Stronger. The Midwest flattened into plains. Wind whispering promises. But betrayal final reared in Omaha. A motel clerk recognizing Juliet from a flyer. Anonymous tip lighting fuses. Sirens wailed distant that night. Forcing a midnight bolt. Truck careening onto backroads. Hearts hammering in sync. We can't keep running, Juliet gasped. As they hunkered in a cornfield. Lights sweeping horizon. Then we stop, Alexis decided. Epiphany sharp. Turn and fight. Not with fists, but truth. Your voice. My story exposed the machine. Juliet searched her face. Then nodded. Dawn breaking on resolve renewed. The road ahead twisted. But together, they carve it straight. The decision to fight transformed the flight. Turning miles into momentum. The truck no longer fugitive but chariot toward reckoning. They veered west still. But with purpose, Portland a beacon. Yet. But first a detour to a lies Theo had whispered of. A queer advocacy hub in Kansas City. Where lawyers with rainbow pins and steel spines waited. En route. They recorded fragments. Juliet's voice steady on Alexis' phone. Recounting the coercion. The threats veiled as love. Alexis interjecting raw truths of Southside survival. The hatred sown like cotton seeds. This isn't just our story, Juliet said. Hitting record. It's Monroe's. The South's. The lie they sell that some loves are worth less. The hub met them cautious. A nondescript office humming with printers and purpose. Director a wiry woman named Lena with tattoos mapping her own battles. Beaumont. Huh, she said. Scanning clippings. High profile. Risky. But potent. We can amplify podcasts. Maybe a viral thread if you're game. They were. Over coffee bitter as resolve. Plans coalesced. Juliet penning an essay for a national outlet. Alexis lending grit to interviews. Their voices twining in a narrative of class and closet. Forbidden fruit turned weapon. Make it human, Lena advised. Not victims, survivors rewriting the script. The essay dropped mid-Oklahoma. Juliet words unfurling like a flag. We were raised to hate each other, but love demanded we choose. Lines seared. On her father's legacy as gilded cage. Harlan's proposal as transaction. The kiss that shattered doctrines. Alexis read it aloud in a diner booth. Voice thick, Juliet hand warm on hers under the table. Shares spiked. Comments a torrent. Support swelling from coasts. Vitriol bubbling from home. Monroe retaliated fierce. Senator Beaumont's camp leaked counters. Anonymous sources claiming Juliet instability. A history of impulsive liaisons. Alexis painted opportunist. Southside schemer with questionable morals. Harlan sued for breach. Damages tallied in humiliation fees. The Gazette ran editorials decrying woke invasion. Church bulletins praying for the girls' souls. Yet the tide turned subtle. Allies emerged unexpected. Cousin Elise. Long silent. Emailing solidarity from New Orleans. Her own scars a map to healing. A mill worker from Alexis' old crew. Posting grainy festival pics with captions flipping the script. New Lex from way back. She's solid. Let him love. The essay hit national wires. CNN panels dissecting Southern hypocrisy. Pundits nodding at the human cost of polished facades. Portland welcomed them rain-kissed. A collective in the Pearl District offering crash space. A cozy row house with mismatched mugs and walls papered in manifestos. They arrived frayed but unbroken. Truck parked under dripping eaves. Duffels thumping floors like punctuation. The house hummed communal. Artists sketching portraits. Activists plotting marches. Dinners a cacophony of stories shared over vegan chili. Integration came gradual. Alexis finding rhythm in community gardens. Hands in soil a echo of Delta dirt but free of thorns. Juliet diving into legal aid. Her poli-sci polish sharpening briefs for the marginalized. Nights belong theirs. Curtain-drawn intimacies. Bodies learning leisure. Kisses lazy without clocks ticking judgment. But echoes pursued. A call from Alexis' father. Number blocked then unblocked in weak moment. Saw the news. Town's burnin' you both. Come home. Lexi. We can fix this quiet. His voice cracked. Love twisted through fear. But she held firm. Fix means bury. Daddy. We're done hiding. Juliet's confrontation came virtual. Her mother video calling from the estate. Face drawn in pearls and pain. He's destroying himself. Juliet. The polls, everything crumbling. Then let it, Juliet replied. Alexis' hand steadying hers off-screen. Build something true instead. The climax crested in D.C. A congressional hearing on LGBTQ protections where Juliet testified. Suit tailored but eyes fierce. Recounting coercion as policy writ small. The ways power preys on vulnerability. Class lines drawn in blood and bias. Alexis watched from gallery shadows. Heart swelling as applause rippled. Lawmakers leaning in. Harlan crumbled under cross-exam. Suit slumping as truths unraveled his narrative. Senator Beaumont's absence spoke volumes. His empire eroding in silence. Back in Portland. The tantrum broke full. Eviction threats from the estate. Trust funds frozen. But Juliet walked away lighter. Unburdened. They can't take what wasn't theirs, she said. Toasting with cheap wine on their stoop. Monroe transformed slow. Ripples from the testimony lapping shores. A pride flag fluttering tentative over the armory. Southside whispers shifting to shrugs. Pastor Hale preaching uneasy on love without limits. Alexis' father mailed a letter. Words scrawled halting, miss you. Girl. Praying you find peace. Maybe one day. No apology. But a crack. Enough for light. They built from there. A co-op cafe in the burbs. Alexis grinding beans with X-Mill precision. Juliet curating readings on resilience. Customers trickled, then flowed. Locals with questions. Runaways with rucksacks. Stories weaving tapestries of shared survival. One autumn evening. Leaves carpeting sidewalks like confetti. They stood on a bridge over the Willamette. Rings simple on fingers. Vows exchanged in a backyard ceremony. Witnesses a circle of chosen kin. We were raised to hate, Alexis murmured. Wind tugging auburn strands. But love taught us mercy. Juliet leaned in. Kiss soft as forgiveness. And freedom. The river below flowed wide. Unhurried. Carrying old hatreds downstream. In Portland mist. They turned homeward. Hands linked. The first chapter closed not in triumph or tragedy, but quiet revolution, a testament that some kisses rewrite not just hearts, but histories. In the end, the real change wasn't headlines or hearings, but the space between them, vast and tender, where two women from opposite banks learned to swim as one. Monroe faded to memory, a town unlearning its lessons slow. But Alexis and Juliet? They'd already graduated. Diplomas etched in scars and stars. The world a little less chained for their defiance.